Mercury was retrograding when this interview was recorded, and my microphone starts out far too soft. I'm shaking my fist at Mercury. Bear with it, it will get better as the interview goes on. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to a really special discussion today with a beautiful astrologer. Very excited to introduce you to my guest who's sitting there patiently waiting. But we're going to be talking all about the energy of Aquarius as it's so pertinent and prominent in the sky at the moment. Now, Natasha Weber is my guest today. I'm just thrilled to be able to share with her and discuss with her. She's one of the most recognized and popular astrologers here in Australia. Natasha's been practicing astrology for roughly 20 years. She's the resident astrologer at Body and Soul magazine. I think it's online. Do they still do, Natasha, print version of Body and Soul?
They do, but it actually amalgamated with Stella Mag. So it's a flip book magazine now, Body and Soul and Stella Magazine in the Herald Sun.
Fantastic, fantastic, great. And you also write for Mamma Mia, and you have 55,000 followers on your amazing Instagram page. It's honestly, if you haven't checked it out, people, it is the most beautiful astrology Instagram page out there. It's absolutely stunning, and the information is second to none. So check out Astro Tash at Instagram if you want to find out that and follow along with all Natasha's wonderful information. And yeah, the links to Natasha's website, the links to Natasha's Insta page will be in the description below. So just head on down to the description if you want to go straight there. So Natasha is also a member of the, now I have to read this, the Academy of Astrology and Cosmobiology, so that my words don't tumble out over one another there, and the American Federation of Astrologers and the Federation of Australian Astrologers as well. So she's highly regarded in all those prestigious astrological circles. So without further ado, my beautiful friend, both inside and out, Natasha Weber, thank you for joining us here today.
Oh my goodness, Kesenya, thank you so much for such a beautiful introduction. I hope I can live up to all of that. I truly appreciate being here today and connecting with you. As we were saying before, it is always very beautiful to connect with a fellow astrologer, and we are a rare breed, so especially an Australian astrologer like yourself. I'm thrilled to be here and to connect with you and, of course, all of your gorgeous followers today.
Lovely. And congratulations, Natasha, too, on your recent award from the Australian Academy of Astrology and Cosmobiology for your significant contribution to astrological research and media. That's just a wonderful achievement. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I was absolutely thrilled to receive this diploma because, as you mentioned, I've been doing astrology for coming up to 20 years now, and I started at the Australian Academy of Astrology and Cosmobiology. It is a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? But when I started with the senior research group, because I did do 3 years of study to achieve my letters behind my name, if you like, and my qualifications professionally. But then I was invited to join the senior research group, which was such a thrill. And I remember being absolutely terrified and feeling like I was amongst these incredibly learned astrologers who were all so much more experienced than I was at the time. And I remember our head lecturer, Pam, going through the requirements for the diploma, which has only been awarded to 6 recipients to date. And they've been around 4 decades. So I just remember at the time being such a novice and thinking, oh my goodness, it would be such an honour to achieve that, but I probably will never, ever get that. You know, that was me back then. It was quite a surprise actually when Pam announced it, and she asked me to attend one of the meetings, the senior research group meetings recently, and she said, oh, there'll be a surprise announcement. And I just had no idea. No idea. And I remember coming on, I think I was eating my lunch at the time, and obviously it was on a Zoom meeting and all the research members were there. And then Pam sort of said, oh, Natasha's here, everyone. I felt a bit embarrassed. Oh, yes, I know I'm late. I'm really sorry. And then she sort of, then she mentioned that I would be receiving the award, and I was totally taken by surprise. So anyway, I'm absolutely thrilled and honoured.
And it's very well deserved. We were talking the other day when we were having a chat about our purpose and mission in the astrological circles, and this mission and purpose that you have actually ties into one of the reasons that you won the award.
Yes, it is my absolute passion to bring integrity to astrology. And in doing that, I feel my little way of doing that is to explain that there's so much more to you than your sun sign. And to explain that perfectly is to go into and delve into what a birth chart entails and breaking that down because, well, of course, as you know, a birth chart is so much more than just one sign. We have the houses that represent different areas of life. Then we have all of the planets, because a birth chart is essentially a snapshot of the heavens at your exact moment of birth. And I know this is going to be very basic for a lot of your viewers, Kesenya, but I think it's so important to keep coming back to the basics. You know, as we discussed, we both have a Mercury and Saturn combination. So that gives a real thoroughness to our work and our application in life. And so I'm all about readdressing the basics and making sure I'm across all of that. But it does illustrate perfectly the complexities of a person in terms of their astrological DNA. So if you allow me to go through and pick apart the birth chart a little bit, I can do that for you. So as I mentioned, the birth chart is calculated according to your exact moment of birth. And so that is that moment in time and space, assuming that you're located in the center of a 360-degree wheel and you're looking up at the heavens at your exact moment of birth. So then we're going to see in that snapshot, which is a 360-degree wheel, as you so beautifully have illustrated behind you. I love that so much. Yes, and this is basically what our birth chart looks like. But we all have our individual placements in there of our sun, our moon, Venus, Mars, Jupiter signs placed in their individual zodiac signs. And then, of course, I'm a stickler for the math of astrology. So then the mathematical relationship that each is making to each other colors and flavors how the expression, how we feel and how we experience those planets in our charts and their placement in the signs. So the math is hugely important. And just going back to the studies, and I'm so glad you brought that up today with the qualifications, I do always recommend that people do some form of study, whether it be on your own, through learning through the amazing books that are out there, or through some sort of formal training, because it's so important to be across the mathematics of a chart, and it helps you work out and things when you're calculating on software. It's so easy these days to do that. But when we're doing that, things can go wrong. And I've certainly had that happen to me, where I've calculated a chart, it's come up incorrectly. You know, one button that you press might not be right, and you get a different result. And if you are trained in the mathematics, then it gives you an understanding of and being able to pick up the detail of something that's not right. So you can look at it and say, no, that's not right. And then when you look at your data that perhaps you've entered in incorrectly, then you can sort of put two and two together and correct the chart. So the mathematics are hugely important in that. I always say to people that their birth charts are as unique to them as their fingerprint, because that moment in time and space that you were born, when you think about it, that's never happened before, and it will never ever happen again. So your birth chart illustrates that unique moment in time that's so special to you. So when people talk about, and this is going back to, and I know, as I mentioned, you know, being the Gemini that I am, I go off on a tangent. I'm just going to pull back to your original question of my mission with astrology is to bring back the integrity to astrology and in explaining the birth chart. Because people will say, people that don't understand astrology, and these are the people, you know, I speak to, they'll say, well, look, you know, I like astrology. I sort of am interested in that, but how can all the population be categorized into 12 categories, 12 different signs? Surely. Sorry.
I hear that a lot too. I hear that a lot too. Yeah, yeah.
Right. Yes, yes. And it's frustrating, right? Because we have to say, well, it's not frustrating. It's my mission, and this is my purpose, to say, well, let me explain to you. And it's exciting, actually. Yeah. Let me show you how much more there is to you than just your sun sign.
Which is a beautiful mission to have, a beautiful purpose to have, because you're really opening up a whole new world to people who have never explored astrology for the first time. And you do it so wonderfully and make it so, as you've just illustrated with what you've just talked about, so clear, and just, you're a good teacher, good Gemini. Good teacher.
Thank you so much.
And Sagittarius as well. Sagittarius rising makes you excellent at teaching and imparting information. So it's all there. But, you know, on my channel, we have a lot of people who are new to astrology looking to dip their toe in it for the first time. So we have all levels, and it's an extremely complex science when you start getting into it. But we have to be able to provide all levels of information for people. You and I both, I think, are very passionate about the background to what we're talking about. I love the astronomy of what I'm talking about, and you're like a couple of friends of mine are very into the mathematics of astrology, and it all intertwines together. You've got to know the foundation to make sense of everything else, you know, all the combinations and the alignments and so forth. But I absolutely love what you said about our special, unique moment in time. I say that a lot in a lot of my readings for people, because we're an embodiment of energy, and there is only one energetic alignment that occurred at the moment of our birth that will be flowing through us. So we have this responsibility to know ourselves, as Plato said, and to be able to express that energy. Well, the universe only gets one chance, and that's you, you know, that's me, that's everybody's unique moment in time. Knowing that, Natasha, I get so excited about this philosophical theory, because it makes you respect other people. You know, you are doing your moment in time. You are God, or, you know, the universe expressing itself through that singular moment in time. You have to do what you've got to do. I've got to do what I've got to do. I have to be me. And it gives so much space for the differences, the uniqueness in people, our own, you know, individuality, as we're all here to express who we are. And, you know, just gives you much more patience and tolerance with people, I find, just realizing that concept. So
yes, and that's the beauty of astrology, isn't it? Therein lies the beauty of astrology, is in the ability to become more self-aware. Yes. But it almost goes a step beyond that. It's like the self-awareness then leads you to self-acceptance. So to look at your birth chart, and when you finally, the penny drops on something that you've perhaps been struggling with about yourself, and you see it there in black and white in your birth chart, and it's explained to you in a way that you become aware of that element or part of yourself, and it might be a flaw that you've really struggled to accept. But in understanding, we can accept ourselves, and that is just what it is, just so to be. Absolutely, absolutely. And freeing, liberating.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is a very Aquarian quality, actually.
It is. It is. Before we dive into all things Aquarian, I just have to mention, because it's so fascinating, I heard a rumor that you grew up with probably the most unusual backyard of anybody in Australia. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? And I know that informed some of the research that you've done as well.
That's correct. Well, for those that
don't, interesting and unique, I have to mention it.
It is, I guess, quite unique. I was born in the Melbourne Zoo. My father is a zoologist, and he was the assistant director of the zoo for many, many years, decades, in fact. And my mother also worked in the zoo. When my parents got together, the newspapers called it the Snake Pit Romance. So my mother had this incredible knack, and she's a very strong woman, double Sagittarius, my mum, with a Mars and Sun in Sagittarius as well. So, and Sagittarius, of course, is the sign that rules animals. So we have a lot of Sagittarius in our family, but my mum had this incredible knack for hand rearing baby animals. So we always had, but unusual baby animals, given it was a zoo. So we always had lion cubs and otters and chimpanzees, snakes, all sorts of things in our home. And of course, I grew up with these amazing animals and with the zoo as being my backyard. So I adore animals. I have a healthy respect for them also. So, you know, my dad is a very logical, sensible, practical person. So he, you know, approached animals from that with that perspective. And he was, in fact, in charge of, back in the 60s, the zoo was, in fact, really a concrete jungle. And he instigated the changing of the enclosures to be more aligned with the animals' natural habitat that we see more of today in the zoos.
The gardens in Melbourne Zoo are incredible. Honestly, they're breathtaking. So if you're responsible for that, kudos to your dad.
Yes, he wanted the animals to be viewed as being more in their natural habitat. He would research the vegetation that would go into the enclosures, because that needed to obviously not be toxic and be aligned with how they would naturally be living. So, you know, taking away a lot of those, the fences and the grates and grills that we would view the animals through. So it's a much nicer experience for the animals. And of course, you know, my dad was integral with that project over many decades. And of course, going back to the astrology research that I did. So my teacher, Pam Rose, she knew that I had that background with the zoo at the time, back when I was studying astrology. And there was something that came up for research purposes, and it had a link back to Vedic astrology, in fact. It had to do with the North Node. The North Node and the Sun's link in a person's birth chart, and whether or not this alluded to a strong connection with animals for that particular person. So Pam, knowing my background, asked me to research this. And I did come up with some interesting common threads. I looked at charts of the birth charts of Jane Goodall and Diane Fossey, you know, who was the amazing woman that worked with the gorillas. The Gorillas in the Mist was the movie based on her life story. I looked at Bart Cummings. I looked at charts of institutions that dealt with animals as well, just to get a little bit more of a broader view. And Valerie Taylor, who was the shark expert. So I looked at many, many charts of people that had strong links to animals, and the results were fascinating. And I wrote an article on my research. It was published in the AFA's international magazine called Today's Astrologer. And the AFA, of course, is the American Federation of Astrologers. And that was really my first exercise into writing as well. I said to Pam, I don't think I can write. I'm a really hopeless writer. So that was a huge challenge. And now I'm writing for a living as well. So
I was very impressed with your recent Pisces forecast for February on Body and Soul, because I'm Pisces Rising, and I'm like, yes. So I love the way you write, certainly with that forecast anyway.
And I'm so glad you're reading for your rising sign, because the way that sun sign astrologers write their horoscopes is, of course, much more accurate if you're reading for your rising sign. So that's sort of my little catch cry that I'm constantly telling people. Read for your sun sign, yes, but my preference is that you read first for your ascendant or your rising sign when it comes to your sun sign horoscopes.
Yeah. Yeah. So if we're looking at rising signs being so important, and your background in childhood being in a very unusual location, I do have to ask, if you're Sagittarius rising, by chance does your IC happen to fall in Aquarius? Just with the unusualness. No, it doesn't. So the IC is Pisces?
Yes, because I have an intercepted sign, but I have my midheaven sign. Is that what yes, the midheaven sign is actually in Leo, the 27 degrees of Leo. But I know you work with whole signs, but it's at the end of Leo according to Placidus. Yes. According to Placidus.
So the MC is at the end of Leo, and the IC is at the end of Aquarius.
Oh, sorry, the IC. Yes, correct. The IC, yeah.
Then that makes sense. I was sitting here listening to you talk about your childhood and how very unusual it was for a childhood. I thought, she's going to have the IC in Aquarius, because it's not Piscean energy to be in the zoo. It's more of the Aquarian energy to have a childhood that's unusual or quirky in some way. And so, yay, you've just solidified that.
a very weird and wonderful childhood, yes, for the fourth house there, yes.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, speaking of Aquarius energy, with your IC in Aquarius, we might move on and start looking at Aquarius as a sign, because as most people who follow my channel are aware, we currently have all these planets, there's about 6 of them as we're recording this, sitting in the sign of Aquarius. And of course, this then means that there is a tremendous influence of energy in the one astrological sign. This is known as a stellium, where we have, I usually use 4 or more planets creating a stellium. Some people use 3, but we have 6, so there's no 2 ways about it. We have a stellium in Aquarius. So Natasha, what do you see this strong Aquarian energy doing in the world at the moment, and doing for us as individuals?
Well, it's definitely packing a punch, and it's something that we're going to have to sit up and take notice of. I think, you know, there are so many Aquarian themes that are at play at the moment because, of course, we have the age of Aquarius that is occurring, or that we're transitioning into, according to my beliefs. A lot of astrologers are having different beliefs about the age of Aquarius, as you probably know, Kesenya. I believe that we have begun that transition, and I won't. It's a subject that it deserves a spot in itself, so I won't delve too strongly into that, but it is just another element to what we're looking at today, and I think it's worthy of mentioning.
I agree. I think we're not in it fully yet, but we're certainly in the transition phase, and from the research I've done, it's sort of a 200-year changeover from one age to another, and we're right in the midst of it, but you can see it becoming stronger and stronger.
Yes. And when you think that each age lasts for approximately 2,160 years, then it's like any slow-moving planet when it activates a person's birth chart. It's never going to be an overnight sensation. It's always going to be a slow progression, because the human psyche, I believe, can't cope with long-lasting, deep seated changes and personal transformations that happen overnight. It's always a slower progression and process. So when you think that each age lasts for a couple of thousand years, it stands to reason that a couple of 100 years to progress into that makes a lot of sense. But I certainly see that with what's happening now, we are definitely have at least begun to dip our toe over that threshold, if not taken a bit of a stride over the actual course. Yes.
Big strides forward.
So I believe that we're going to be seeing this, and like with a lot of my astrology, how I like to approach it, I like to address a little bit the collective vibe. Because there is the global sort of ramifications that we do experience, and I guess that's more mundane astrology. And I wouldn't like to specify myself as a mundane astrologer. I'm more interested in the personal workings of a person's birth chart and what they're experiencing on a personal level. But it's definitely interesting to acknowledge and to be aware of, because, you know, we put it all together and we're all part of a collective, whether we like it or not. So in terms of the Aquarian themes that we'll be seeing collectively and on a global scale, I think we'll be seeing a lot of huge medical and scientific breakthroughs. We'll be seeing a revamping of individual liberties and kind of going against the status quo in terms of governments, politics, religious rights. All of these things, I believe, are going to be revamped and reviewed, and we might be surprised as to what's coming forward. I think it's going to be a great leap into almost a sci-fi movie. Because, as you know, Aquarius rules technology. Gemini likes to delve in there a little bit as well, but Aquarius is the great thinker also, highly intellectual sign and highly cerebral. On that note, I do think it's so important that while we're saying, oh, isn't it exciting, we're moving into a new age and we're going, you know, it's about freedom and liberation and so on, and you know, we're going to be stepping into a sci-fi movie and it's all going to be very thrilling. Given that it's so cerebral, I think there is a danger associated with with stepping into the age of Aquarius and into all these Aquarian themes, and that is that we're losing touch, or we don't want to lose touch with our heart center and our intuition.
Yeah.
So important to acknowledge and to utilize the benefits of this hugely super intelligent sign, but also to maintain a little bit of our humanness.
Yeah.
You know, I think that globally we'll be seeing huge advancements with technology, such as smart gadgets, humanized robots, all of this sort of thing. But we need to just make sure we maintain our humanness as well.
Yeah, we don't lose our heart. I think
Right.
in ancient astrology, the ancient astrologers believed that Aquarius was probably the most complicated psychologically of any of the signs. And so one of the hiccups that may come about, I feel, in the age of Aquarius, if we'll call them hiccups, and one of the things to be careful of is mental health and people's mental health. As we're going to spend like 2,000 years working on our psychological hang-ups as a collective, really, and many individuals who will be born in that time will be obviously doing the same thing as well, but it's part of growth in the overall trajectory of things. But yes, mental health, and we've certainly seen in recent times the rise in awareness around mental health issues like anxiety and depression and other similar kinds of things that were never discussed or never talked about in previous generations. So we can see that coming out to the fore as well as something that might affect the masses, being such a, as you said, a cerebral, mind-based sign like Aquarius is.
Yes, so, and I think that could definitely be one of the casualties of this Aquarius stellium, in fact, is our mental health issues. It's very important to maintain focus on that and provide the support to those who are really, you know, struggling. I think Aquarius is also, you know, being such a cool emotional sign, there might be the tendency to detach. Yep. If for those that are struggling with anxiety and depression, I think that the go-to will be to just detach. And that's not necessarily a healthy way of dealing with things. So if we're all aware of this and the astrology can help us to become aware, then we can be there and set up support structures in order for that not to happen.
Absolutely. And creating connectivity, I think, is important as well, that goes beyond just internet and social media, to be able to be, you know, like you were saying, not to lose our heart, to be personal and not lose that personal touch during this time too. And we're kind of seeing a lot of that with the pandemic that's been going on, that we've sort of stepped back from that personal exchange and more into the virtual world. So it's another sign of the age of Aquarius, but one we need to be very aware of and how we handle, I think.
Yes. It's so true. And I think you've just highlighted the light side. You know, I believe, and just going back to the birth chart, and all planets and signs, they all have a light and a shadow expression. So, you know, where we've discussed the potential shadow side of Aquarius, the light side is, of course, its concern for humanity and its ability to connect. Aquarius is very much the sign of community and social networking and connecting. So that is something that is positive that we can use to help the casualty of you know, detaching emotionally and the potential of mental illness is using those Aquarian lighter side to counterbalance that.
Well, it's such a friendly sign as well. I mean, nobody's as friendly as Aquarians. They are just super friendly. And that, like you said, they're very into that humanitarian expression as well, but also the equality I love. And I think that's a beautiful thing that we are seeing rise up now too. So how do you interpret all of this as applying now, particularly when we have so many planets in the one sign?
Yes, absolutely. So I'd like to just run through, if possible, each sign, and I have a few little notes here that I'm going to refer to, but each sign and how the Aquarius stellium might be affecting your sun sign. And also, if you do know for the people out there, if you do know your rising sign, then please do listen out for that one as well, because that will be very accurate for you and how these themes might be affecting you personally. So on a personal level, of course, we've discussed a little bit the collective and the global ramifications of these Aquarian themes. But on a personal level, Aquarius is going to bring about the desire for greater freedom. It's obviously a highly intellectual sign, so you'll be exploring sort of new areas and new ways of doing things. And of course, Aquarius is super individual. Yes. Aquarius dances to the beat of its own drum. So you'll be hopefully learning a little bit today when I run through each sign, how you can apply that individual streak and what areas of life, most importantly, that might be affecting for you and your sign. Okay, so and I love your chart back there. So
I'll help you along with it if you like, if you want to.
Would you like me to pop up a little chart which shows up all the planets as well? I have one. As I mentioned, I try to get a chart for each sign, but we don't really need it, but it is just good to have a little look. This is my first try at screen sharing, everyone, so if I mess it up. Okay, here we go. I found it, and here is today's chart. As we are coming to you, we have the Sun in Aquarius, we have a Mercury retrograde in Aquarius. Mm-hmm. And I would just like to point out that, you know, Mercury retrograde really cops a bad rap. Yeah. But here we have the light expression of a Mercury retrograde, where we're going in deep, we're going behind the scenes to discuss the themes of Aquarius while Mercury is moving backwards in the age of Aquarius. So it's giving us an opportunity to be introspective about Aquarius, which I quite like. We have Jupiter in Aquarius for the best part of this year. We have Venus in Aquarius, and we also have Saturn in Aquarius, and a new moon as well, which is going to be opening new doors and new chapters for us. So I'm going to exit out of this, and hopefully it all gets back to...
Well done for your first share.
I'm going to get back to full screen now.
Did well.
There we go. That was very exciting. Okay. So if you would allow me to run through each sign, I can do that now, and just we can explore which house. So I'm looking at the houses and what area of life this Aquarius stellium might be triggering for you to create this type of Aquarian change. So if you are an Aries or an Aries rising, then your 11th house is going to be triggered. There we go.
I'll be the weather girl.
Thank you so much. So this is going to be creating a bit of a friendship inventory for you. It might be time to take a look at your friendships. Maybe do a bit of a friendship cull, because this is bringing about a new perspective on who needs to be in your life. Who do you surround yourself with? And are they still in line with your points of view, with the way you want to live your life? It's so important that we align ourselves with like-minded people, because those that dull our vibe are really unhealthy for us. And sometimes we can just go along without really reassessing, and we find that we're being pulled down and judged, and it just sometimes might take a little bit of an Aquarius, for Aries rising or Aries folks, might take a little bit of an Aquarius nudge to say, hey, you need to take a look at this, take a look at your friendship group, and maybe just reassess there. Of course, the 11th house also rules hopes and wishes. So this might be a good time to reassess hopes and wishes and make sure that you're living in accordance with your authentic dreams. And with Aquarius being all about originality, are they really your dreams, or are they someone else's dreams? And maybe they were your dreams back when you were a child, but maybe they're no longer relevant for you. So it might be time to sort of make some shifts in that area. Okay, so moving along to Taurus or Taurus rising people. So here we have 10th house. 10th house themes at work here. So 10th house, of course, rules the career. It's your midheaven. So Taurus people might really find that they have a complete about face with their career. This These are the people that they've been accountants, and that's been working very well for them previously. But all of a sudden, with this Aquarian energy, they decide they want to be a circus performer. So now, obviously, that's a little extreme, but you get my gist. There could be a really radical change in what you do for a living. And I always love the 10th house as being more of a vocation rather than an everyday job.
Yeah.
So it might be that you have to maintain your everyday job, like being, you know, an accountant or whatever you're doing for an everyday job. That might have to be kept on the boil because we all have bills to pay and so on. We need to be practical about that. But it might be your vocation, your life direction that takes a radical turn for the better with this Aquarian energy. And of course, Aquarius is very much a charitable sign as well. So I think if your midheaven is being triggered by this stellium, you might benefit by doing some type of volunteer work or some type of charity work that benefits. Wouldn't it be great if it was to benefit humanity at large? But not all of us are going to change the world, and not all Taurians are going to change the world there. But perhaps then look at how you can better your local community or do some charity work for people or a cause that's really close to your heart. So that's what I see for Taurus people with this Aquarius.
Yeah, love it.
Yes. And moving right along to Gemini. So this is the 9th house for Geminis. And of course, the 9th house rules travel, which is challenging for us now with COVID. But there will be that yearning. There'll be that yearning to travel regardless of whether we're able to or not. So my suggestion would be to perhaps explore traveling within your own boundaries, which is, of course, a very Saturnian theme, and we have Saturn up there in Aquarius as well. So perhaps working with those boundaries that are put in place, and perhaps exploring your own local areas, traveling amongst around your own country. I know in Australia, the government's certainly encouraging, because it benefits the economy, of course, encouraging Australians to travel in their own country and see your own backyard. And it's not such a bad idea, really. I think, you know, we're often, 9th house is very much what's out there, you know, the higher learning, and how can I grow and how can I expand myself from what's out there. But sometimes, you know, if restrictions are put in place, we have to work within. And I would apply that to travel for Geminis and Gemini rising people. And then also, if the travel bug isn't getting you, then the 9th house is very much about education as well. So, and that is essentially an exploration of the mind, isn't it? So 9th house, of course, rules Sagittarius, and I'm going to go off on a tangent here, but I think that a lot of Sagittarians, they don't necessarily feel aligned with travel, and they think, well, I'm the sign of travel, but, you know, I really am a bit of a homebody. But I would suggest then in that case, you're probably a Sagittarian who needs or has the need to explore within, explore your mind. You probably love to sit there and read books and educate yourself then, because it's still a way of expanding your horizons and learning and growing. So for Geminis and Gemini rising people, perhaps looking at exploring the mind and doing that through some sort of educational process, picking up an amazing book that's going to, and again, bringing in the Aquarian themes, that's going to be something a little bit different, a little bit left of centre. Pick up a book on a subject that you know nothing about, but you've always kind of been tempted to explore, something a little bit different. I think also with Geminis and Gemini rising, it might bring in an explanation or an epiphany about why something happened in the way that it did. And it might be a chance to look at something from your past that you've been unable to make sense of up until now from a different perspective. That's making sense. Yes.
Yeah, it does.
I think that for Geminis and Gemini rising, it could bring, this Aquarian stellium can bring a real aha moment. Like, aha, I get that now. It's that understanding, that drop of inspiration that might well come in.
Because it's the house of inspiration, yes? That's where that interpretation is coming from?
And yes, and also it's just that step deeper of higher learning and education, what the ninth house represents. And of course, Aquarius being such an intelligent sign, we're accessing these cerebral parts of ourselves like never before. Maybe not never before, but certainly rare to have all of this energy in Aquarius.
Yeah. So online learning is also good in the ninth house with Aquarius there.
Yes, absolutely. Online learning, go for it. And books. I love books. So for Cancerians, this is activating your 8th house. And 8th house, of course, money issues, but particularly assets and assets, possessions, but possibly also property, anything that you share with someone else. I think that Cancerians will be looking at and reevaluating and coming up with really new and novel and unique ways of investing and wealth creation. So if you're a Cancer and you have money invested with someone else and that hasn't really been working well for you, or the situation has just changed, which is likely to happen with this Aquarius energy bombarding this house for you, it's going to be a good time for you to make that change. You know, and I'm also speaking to people possibly that have previously been married and at this time they're looking at separating their assets. You know, I think a lot of Cancerians are going to benefit with this Aquarian energy because it's going to give them the ability and the insight to and possibly bring in helpful advisors as well, to help advise you in better ways to invest your money and to you know, possibly change up how you're how that's working for you or not working for you. But also going a little bit deeper, the 8th house is very much about intimacy. So this stellium's going to want to crack you open and open you up to sharing of yourself in more intimate and emotional ways. So sort of figuring out ways that can work for you. And I think also it's going to bring up some trust issues. So it will give Cancerians and Cancerian rising people a little bit of an impetus and a push to be working on those trust issues. And you might find someone, possibly a soulmate, stepping into your life at this time to help you, like a soul contract, work on those trust issues with you.
Perfect.
Leo and Leo rising people. Okay, so this is the 7th house. So relationship revolution for the Leos out there and the Leo rising.
Leo, sun and moon. You've got moon there.
Leo moon. I've got the Leo moon. Yes.
Because sometimes we in the Vedic system they look at the rising and the moon sign as, you know, they take the chart, they cast the chart from the moon sign as well. So sometimes when I do a presentation, I will be including the moon sign as one of the signs you can look at. So I have sun in Leo, you have moon in Leo. So fire away, Natasha. I'm very interested in Leo.
That's so interesting because you know, and I always say to people, read your sun sign, but my preference is your, you know, in that sun sign horoscopes, my preference is your rising sign, then your sun sign, but also your moon sign, but only if you resonate strongly with that. So I guess that definitely puts that layer and that puts that into perspective with your line of astrology as well. So that's very interesting.
Yeah.
So I believe that this is a huge relationship revolution for Leos, and it's really looking at your needs. Are they being met in a relationship? This could be, of course, this is not just romantic partnerships, but this could also be a business partnership. It's probably the most important person that's currently in your life. that you might be reassessing. And if there is no person in your life, no special someone in your life that that fills this role, then you Leos will be looking at, well, who does this person need to be? And maybe it's very different to the person that you previously thought. I think that single Leos or Leo rising people or Leo moon people are going to be really attracting and being attracted to a different type to what they usually or normally are attracted to. You know, we all have our type. Whether it's tall, dark and handsome, whether it's the type that we want to save and rescue all the time. But I think with this Aquarius stellium in the 7th house for Leos, it's going to be a major change where, you know, they're going to be looking at the relationships that they normally are attracting and saying, hang on a second, I'm no longer interested in babysitting a guy or nurturing or nursing him through his issues. I'm looking for someone who's now strong and who could potentially support me and bring something to my life. That's one possibility there. Okay, and also I think being such a cerebral sign, if you are happily coupled up as a Leo or a Leo rising person, then there's going to be some sort of new welcome chapter in how you communicate with your partner. So looking at different ways of communicating. If something hasn't been working for you or if you're a little bit stuck, I think that something will present itself and you'll be able to open up to a new way of communicating. And maybe there's something that you've been scared about discussing with your partner or holding back on, but this Aquarius stellium is going to push you to explore new ways of discussing things. And it might leave you thinking, well, I don't know why I was so afraid of approaching that subject in the first place. And I think you'll find yourself on the same page. Yeah. As your partner, if you explore those new ways and unique ways of communicating. Maybe write a letter. Maybe if there's something that's weighing heavily on you and you're in a relationship and you can't get something off your chest, maybe you've never written a letter before, but maybe that's a beautiful way of communicating in a new way, as an example. Yeah.
So you'll revolutionize how you communicate with your partner with Aquarius here. Beautiful.
Perfectly put. Thank you.
Love it.
Right. So Libra, sorry, we've done, we're up to Virgo. Okay. Virgo. Right. So for Virgos and Virgo rising, we have the Aquarian stellium bringing in a health review. So this is going to be reassessing possibly your diet and your exercise regime, and really feeling pushed to become the best version of yourself on more of a physical level. Possibly working in new and unique ways of becoming healthier. So maybe you're someone who's always lived off a hamburger diet and maybe that's not working for you anymore. So possibly, you know, you find yourself drawn to doing a detox or a juice fast for a short period of time, or you pick up a book or you go and do some online learning about how your body works and getting a little bit more interested in that and just having that unique and different approach to your health and well-being. So, and, you know, a good idea to change up your exercise regime with this one as well, because if you're always at the gym pumping weights, then maybe your body will give you signs and signals that, you know, yoga's really required right now, or vice versa. So I think it's, you know, going to give your health and well-being a bit of a shake-up, but also what this can do is bring about or bring to light information about a previous health issue. So if you've been struggling with, or you've just gotten comfortable with having a certain health issue, you know, often we have a health situation or problem that kind of plagues us for so long that we just learn to live with it. And it just kind of it hums along in the background and we just get used to it. But with this Aquarian stellium, This can help you to bring information to light to help you deal with that and get more information too around that health issue for you. Bring that to light. Yes.
Maybe encourage you to find alternative health practitioners who can help as well with Aquarius ruling that energy.
Absolutely, absolutely, because Aquarius, rules everything that's alternative, including health, particularly for this sign. So if you are someone that's always gone the traditional route and you've been fearful of perhaps exploring alternative medicine or seeing a naturopath or a herbalist, acupuncturist, so many out there, this might give you the impetus to then explore those alternative areas of health and well-being. Yes. All right, so Libra, we have the 5th house. So the 5th house is going to be more for Librans and Libra rising, more about love and that heart center that we talked a little bit about as well. And this is about, more so than being in a relationship where you're questioning your needs, this is about questioning your needs of really what fills you up, what fills your heart. And you, again, questioning what type of partner, but it's also about the self-love. I think, the 5th house is love, but the love that we experience in life is simply a reflection of the love that we have for ourselves. So I think this is 5th house stuff is a little bit deeper into the love arena than the 7th house relationships. So this is really about questioning, well, do I really love myself? When I say, yeah, I love myself, I quite like myself. Well, do you really? Do you really? And if there are areas that you don't, maybe it's time, rather than changing it, maybe it's really time to come to a radical self-acceptance of those areas. So shift up your perceptions. Aquarius turns things on its head. So shifting up those perceptions. And speaking of shifting up perceptions, maybe you've always had a notion that love for you comes in a certain package. And, maybe it doesn't. Maybe you've always imagined that you'll feel loved when you are secure and stable. But possibly you might look at love as being something different and bringing something different, in that love can now be freedom and more independence, being both very strongly associated with the sign of Aquarius. And maybe you say to yourself, do you know what? I'm now looking for a relationship or a love affair that grants me the freedom to be myself, and that grants me enough independence because I'm secure enough in myself and I love myself enough to be comfortable with that. Yeah.
Look, Libra is my moon sign, and everything you've said, I just want to underline it and get out the highlighter. That's me. That's what I'm going through. It's so going on.
Oh, beautiful. Yes, I'm so glad it's resonating with you. Maybe I'm tuning in with you a little bit as well.
Perfect.
So another interesting thing here is in terms of love, and I just want to say something else, that with the mental connection, that is the Aquarian theme. So I think with the Libra rising and Libra component, having that mental connection in a love affair is so important. That mental connection is going to be your biggest turn on. Whereas, maybe previously you were attracted to a certain physical type, I think the Aquarian stellium is going to say, hey, but that mental connection, isn't that a massive aphrodisiac for you? And you're like, yeah, actually, yeah. Also, another little point there is the children. So if you are a Libra or a Libra rising person, you might find that your child, and you're a parent, you might find that your child rebels a little bit with this. So this is looking a little bit beyond you and into your life, because the birth chart shows the life experience, doesn't it? Not just our personality traits, but it shows the life experience. So for Librans, possibly that are parents, possibly, just buckle down for a bit of a rebellion if you've got children around. Those rebellious years.
Deep breath.
And for, okay, so for Scorpio and Scorpio rising, this is going to be 4th house. And this is really, Aquarius really loves supporting the black sheep of the family. So the 4th house focus, of course, is home and family for Scorpios, but really supporting that black sheep. So if you are someone that has different points of view, different belief system to the rest of your family, or people that you deem as family, I think 4th house is not necessarily just our blood relatives. It can be those people that we're so close with that we consider family. So this is very much about standing your ground with your own unique viewpoints and belief system, you know, come what may. And really with this stellium, it's going to give you the strength and the push to do that. And family may not like it, but you will need to stand strong in that, and you probably will, you know, it will give you the strength to do that. And to go against that status quo. And for those younger folks with Scorpio and Scorpio rising, if you're at the age where you're looking at potentially leaving home and flying the coop, then this Aquarius stellium is really going to help you to do that.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yes.
Perfect. Liberation, freedom.
Liberation, freedom, own place. Just remember it comes with your own bills as well.
That's right. Too many of them.
Exactly. So if you have Sagittarius or Sagittarius rising, then this is activating the 3rd house for you. And this is me, actually. So this is very much about your voice and projecting your message out into the world. What is it that you have to communicate to the world? What is your message? And the most important thing to consider is to make sure that your message and your voice is authentic and your original voice. And it doesn't matter if it's not perfect, but it has to be authentic and original, and to really be confident to speak out on your views and to communicate your own individual ideas and points of view. I think it's really interesting that, you know, I'm speaking literally about Aquarius, and I'm a Sagittarius rising, and Aquarius rules my 3rd house. So
no coincidences.
Us astrologers, sometimes we really do live, eat and breathe astrology. But that's definitely for me ringing true. And I am also thinking about the message that I'm projecting into the world and how I want to go about doing that. Yeah. So the 3rd house also rules social media. So if you're a Sagittarius or Sagittarius rising, regardless of what you're doing, I would urge you to consider, at least if you're a business owner, you might wish to take your business online. And if it's already online, I'd be looking at doing some type of Facebook ads or social media promotion, because this Aquarius energy is really going to be giving a boost to your social media zone. Right, so you can really utilize that in the best way to get your voice and your message across in an authentic way.
Gorgeous. Yeah. Beautiful.
Right, so Capricorn or Capricorn rising people are looking at reshuffling their finances. It sounds a little bit boring, but it's really important, right? The 2nd house is often about money, but it's more about your everyday cash flow. So you'll be given possibly novel inspiration to reorganize your budget, looking at your incomings and your outgoings from a unique perspective. So what has worked for you in the past and previously may not be working for you anymore, and the Aquarian energy will fall in and give you new inspiration. And it might be something that you think, gosh, why didn't I think of that before? But it could be something that is so very different to the way that you're used to doing things. So I would urge you to be open to really unconventional ways of working your money as well. Just make sure always, when I say unconventional, I don't mean to invest in a crazy get rich quick scheme. So always do your due diligence when it comes to your, your finances and so on. But I think that Aquarian stellium will definitely be bringing a push and a need and a necessity to reevaluate finances for Capricorn rising people.
So would it be a good idea for Capricorn people to invest in Aquarian things at the moment, like progressive inventions, science, gadgets and electronics and things like that? Would they be good areas is this a good energy rather for a Capricornian person to invest in those things?
I would think so. Yes, absolutely. That's definitely being more specific about areas of investment. Of course, investment is more 8th house. So that's not necessarily the 2nd house, is more of our everyday sort of run-of-the-mill type of budgeting and maybe looking at new ways of doing that. But certainly that's a great idea more for the 8th house, I would say.
Then so you would be buying some electronic piece of equipment or
yes, investing. I don't want to tell people where to invest, but for example, things like electronic currency, Bitcoin, and these type of things are getting a lot of press at the moment. So that might be something that you're attracted to doing, but I didn't tell you to invest. I don't know enough about that specific area, but that's the general idea, yes. Also for Capricorn rising people, this stellium in Aquarius activating the 2nd house is going to bring up questions around what you value, what's important to you in terms of your morals and what you stand for, and who is important, who plays an important role in your life, and do they still deserve to be there?
Right.
So it's a questioning and a reevaluation of your values, and that might be worth looking at, and it might get a shake-up. Yeah. So what we once valued, it might be security, it might be looks and beauty. Maybe the Aquarian stellium is saying, but hang on, you've got something really special to offer that comes from your belief system or comes from your brain. So share that and value that and invest yourself and back yourself there.
Gorgeous. Yeah. We sometimes forget, because we get so focused on the material side of the 2nd house, and we forget that it is actually about values, which includes our value system. So that's just gorgeous. Thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, thank you. I think, with astrology, I always try and provide a little bit of practical application, because we're all living a human experience, and in our everyday lives, I mean, that's kind of what we're dealing with on an everyday basis. But of course, we're layers, right? So, there's that deeper part to acknowledge as well. So, yeah, layer it up.
Yes, exactly.
And of course, we'll get to Aquarius. Wow, all eyes on you, Aquarius. So this is the big one. And a lot of Aquarians have probably been feeling quite a deep-seated shift for some time, I would suspect, and they will be feeling the shift for some time to come. I think Aquarians have a very important role to play in society at the moment, and moving forward as well. And it's interesting that my friends and colleagues that are having babies at the moment, those that have been born as Aquarians, I say, I'm going to watch this little baby's journey to when maybe they become 20 years old. By that stage, this Aquarian baby, I believe, has an important role to play in, how we're living our lives, and, possibly with medical research and scientific breakthroughs and technology and community and being leaders of our community and of our countries. So yes, Aquarians are our future, really. But having said that, of course, I'm not just talking about Aquarian suns. I'm talking about Aquarian moons and Aquarian rising people as well. So if you have strong Aquarius in your chart and you resonate with that sign, chances are you have a big role to play in time to come. So step into your personal power. And I think this is very much now what is the focus for Aquarian and Aquarian rising people. It's an opportunity to really step into your power. And of course, the first house rules our personality. So it's what we're projecting into the world. And I think that, you know, the Aquarians are going to be, in stepping into their personal power, going to be saying, well, I'm fabulous, and I don't really care what you think of me. This is what I'm projecting. It's authentic, it's original. I might be a little bit quirky, I might be a little bit bizarre, and that's okay, because I'm comfortable with my uniqueness. Of course, going back to that more superficial layer of how this might play out in everyday life for other people, where that doesn't resonate, it's a great time to do an image or a body overhaul. You could be changing up your look. You could decide that, you know, blonde is no longer for you, that you want a radical change. You know, maybe even do a purple balayage or something. This Aquarian energy is going to be very supportive of any sort of outward changes that you might like to make to your hair, your makeup, your wardrobe. Go for it. Your body image. Also, reassessing how we view our bodies. So people that have struggled with body image will be empowered by this Aquarian stellium, I feel. So if you're a little overweight, or, you know, perhaps things are going down south. And
hello.
You know, it might give you a little boost in that area where you say, well, do you know what? I see my unique beauty and I accept my unique beauty. Sure, you know, I'm not the way I looked 20 years ago, but I wear these smile lines like a badge of honor and with pride. And I might have some dimples on my butt, and that's okay because my body carries me through life and is strong and healthy and beautiful. So that's another way of looking at it. Yes.
Gorgeous way of looking at it, the way we should all look at it, you know.
Yes, well, I wish. So our Pisces people.
Yeah, I've been waiting for this one.
Beautiful, beautiful, sensitive Pisces, sun and rising. If you have strong Pisces in your chart, then Aquarius is going to be activating your 12th house. So this is the house of rest, solitude, and rejuvenation. So I think, you know, Pisces people are going to be going within. This Aquarius stellium is really encouraging you to go on a journey of self-exploration. And you might be questioning your faith at this time. You might be questioning your religious beliefs at this time. But just don't forget that everything that comes up, it's a beautiful thing, and it's okay to be questioning these things because it helps us to come to that point of self-awareness and then self-acceptance. And when I'm talking about, faith and religion, it sounds like it's very ninth house or Jupiter themed topics, but mustn't forget that Pisces is also ruled by Jupiter. And the 12th house is very much about spirituality and going within. So that's how I'm coming to that conclusion. It's a beautiful time to explore your spirituality. So just, again, exploring different areas that might resonate with you, whether that be astrology or whether it might be something else. Meditation, it's a fantastic time for Pisces to learn how to meditate. And if you've let your practice slide, like I have, great idea to kind of reinstigate that and build a beautiful little sanctuary in your house, or create that area that's special to you, that's quiet and conducive to being in solitude. And I think Pisces people are going to feel more comfortable and in fact be drawn to being in solitude more so than other signs with this Aquarius stellium. And that's important. And it's important, so important, to be comfortable with being alone, comfortable with ourselves, because that's the only time we really get to know ourselves is in moments of solitude and quiet.
I love it. As a Pisces rising person, I'm like, bring on the solitude, you know.
Right.
Yeah. But in the Vedic system, the 12th house is actually considered to represent the pleasures of the bedroom. So Pisces could be having some alternative Aquarian fun in the bedroom if they're lucky.
Maybe you're in solitude with somebody else.
That's right. So there we go. Well, you don't need to have someone to have a bit of fun, do you, if you're really getting down to it?
I love that idea. I'm sure Pisces do too. And isn't it beautiful how we can layer up Vedic astrology with the Western astrology? And I really believe that all schools of astrology have something to offer, because again, it comes down to that philosophy of layers. Yeah. I have a Vedic colleague and friend of mine who said to me that I have a Scorpio rising in the Vedic system. And when I began to think of that, I thought that makes so much sense. There were parts of myself that were unexplained, really, in my traditional, in the chart that I look at. And the Scorpio rising gave me a little bit more of an understanding to the certain parts of myself. So definitely it all works.
It does. It does. So what school of astrology is your main practice? You're a Western astrologer, but have you got a special leaning towards, say, evolutionary astrology or anything like that?
I think I've just drawn to personal astrology, psychological astrology. Yes. You know, I really like unpacking what makes us tick. Yeah. Of course, I use the tropical zodiac and Western astrology, but I'm also educated and have qualifications in cosmobiology, which, for those of you that don't know.
Yeah, explain for us what that is, yeah.
All right. Well, I'm a bit rusty on it at the moment, and Pam would be rapping my knuckles. But basically, cosmobiology was developed by Eberton, Reinhold Eberton, who was a German scientist that believed that the houses in astrology were unscientific. So he created the 90-degree wheel, which is basically segregated into 3 different segments according to cardinal, fixed, or mutable. So the planets fall into these areas, and it makes very interesting mathematical connections. So it is, again, a highly mathematically based system. And it doesn't show any trines, but it will show the squares and the hard aspects and the conjunctions. And it's very good for a quick visual of the chart to show up with these hard aspects in the way that it's all configured. Right. Yeah, it's a very interesting method to be used, I think, in conjunction with your 360-degree wheel. Yeah. So often in our studies, we'd look at both just to, the more the better.
Yeah.
Makes you an astrologer.
And is it, I might be incorrect here, but is it cosmobiology that utilizes the midpoint theory? Is that where it is? Okay.
Yes, yes. Although we can use the midpoints in the usual 360-degree wheel as well, using the absolute zodiac, which is a table of numbers, basically. Each degree is associated with. So that's what you use to calculate. Gosh, it's been a while since I've done hand-done calculations in midpoints, but we did use them a lot in the studies. And that's really interesting, because that midpoint between 2 planets, when it's calculated correctly, you're basically given a degree. And that degree, the theory is that degree is highly sensitive to when it's triggered by a transiting planet. Yeah. So, something that can't be explained when you're looking at a chart and there's been an activation. And then when you look at the midpoint, it's really interesting to see.
It's fascinating. It's very similar to the ancient, lots or parts, as they're called in the ancient Persian systems, I think, the part of fortune and part of marriage. And it's absolutely fascinating to look at that. And really, as we started out by saying, our purpose as astrologers and a mission that you are fulfilling so beautifully, Natasha, is teaching people that there's more to your sun sign. But the beauty of astrology that I love is that how much more do you want to go? Like, you could go on and on and on forever, learning more, exploring more, uncovering more. And your reference a moment ago to having in the Vedic system Scorpio rising actually is all about researching, isn't it, and going deeper than the surface. And so that's a beautiful component, which, you know, would illustrate your love of the mathematics and the cosmobiology kind of approach and the midpoint approach and so on, which I love. I have Aquarius rising in sidereal astrology. So, but it's interesting, in the sidereal system, we don't have an stellium in Aquarius at the moment. It's all in Capricorn. So that makes everything very, very different. Really.
That is very, because usually it's about a sign back, isn't it?
Yeah, 23 degrees, I think, or so backwards. Yeah, in the horoscope. So it does get very complex and where we head and where we look. But when I talk about using Vedic astrology, I use the tropical system, which is, I guess it's the hybrid, if you like, of the Vedic system that's I've been taught by Ernst Wilhelm, for those who follow me who don't know that. So Ernst has taught the use of tropical. He has reasons which I find very compelling for that approach. But yeah, it's fascinating to explore both, because both have, like, I'm an astrologer. Aquarius rules astrologers, so, you know, go figure. You know, and Scorpio has an allegiance to astrologers as well, because of the love of research and the psychological component of Scorpio too.
Yes, I love a bit of Scorpio in a chart. I think it does get a bit of a bad rap, but, you know, I always say to have a bit of strong Scorpio there, it adds depth to a person's character.
Absolutely.
And passion. And I'm all about passion. Yeah. So I guess that does align with the Scorpio rising in that case too, because, you know, without a passion purpose, we're floating.
Absolutely. Well, Natasha, this has been such a delight. I've had so much fun, and I tell you, it's just so refreshing to hear someone else's perspective going around the horoscope. I'm like, oh, epiphany, light bulb moment here, there, and everywhere. It's absolutely wonderful. Thank you for that, and thank you for your time. Such a joy to connect with you at last. I feel like, you know, we have this beautiful connection, which is illustrated in our synastry chart, actually, and so. To be able to sort of meet with you, to do this, to share, it's just like it's a dream come true for me. I feel very, very privileged to have had you come and talk on my channel today. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, I'm very honoured to be here, and it's been so beautiful connecting with you, and hearing your different viewpoints has helped me also. We're always learning about, you know, as astrologers, we're always learning, aren't we? And I did remember that when I was first considering studying astrology, and I contacted my teacher for the first time, and I said, right, so when will I be a qualified astrologer? How long will I need to be studying for? And she said to me, well, and she's a Pisces, well, you never really stop learning. Such a Pisces answer, isn't it, really? And I just thought, well, that's ridiculous. What do you mean I never stop learning? I want to know when I'm getting my qualifications. But now I reflect on that, and she is so right. We always are learning as astrologers. There are so many different layers and complexities, because how do you even sum up a human being? We are infinitely complex and beautiful.
And it just goes on and on as we keep discovering more things in the sky as well. You know, our human consciousness is just going at the moment, exploding with enlightenment. And that's being reflected in, like, I think there's been 80 new planets that have been discovered in recent times. I'm not sure since when, but they're all going to be like, these are planets out in the Kuiper belt, you know, out with sort of beyond Pluto and out there. And of course, as we discover these new bodies in the solar system, so too our consciousness as a collective reflects that new awareness and whatever those bodies represent. So it's never ending. Astrology is never ending. It's as big as the universe. So how big do you want to go?
Exactly. As big as the universe. And an expansion of consciousness. I think that's a really good way to sum up the Aquarian themes.
Yeah, exactly. Love it. Love it.
Consciousness. Yes.
So Natasha, I would love to have you back sometime. I'll have to get you in again to have a chat about more wonderful astrological themes. But until then, I just want to say a big thank you, and do to all my viewers, go out and follow Astro Tash on Instagram Check out the links to all her services at her website in the description below. Check that out. And yeah, make sure you follow Natasha. She's wonderful, and there's so much information that is so rich and deep that she brings to the astrological world. Thank you so much, Natasha.
Thank you, beautiful. No, thank you so much. Take care and happy Aquarius stellium.
Bye-bye.